welcome back. I am very excited because today I get to go to the cinemas again. It's a lovely time of the year where a lot of horror films and dark films and thrillers are out at the cinemas. And although unfortunately some of them aren't coming to Australia just yet, this one is. And today we're going to go see the Retaliators. I do want to say, just because I know I'll get a lot of questions about this, Pearl, no Australian release date. Don't know what's going on with that film. There's been nothing, and it was really disappointing because X came out here on time, so I'm not sure why Pearl has just not got a mention, but that's why I'm not talking about Pearl. It's because I can't see it. But I can see this movie. And the tagline for this one is really interesting. I'll only keep it in if it doesn't spoil it, but it says it's about an upstanding man who uncovers a dark and twisted underworld as he searches for answers surrounding a death of a loved one. The film has 3 directors, which I'm seeing right now, and it also stars one of the directors. So that's always... It's always an interesting one because it can either mean that the film is like a passion project and they're greatly involved, but sometimes when you can't step away from one role and really focus on one role and you want to have control over the whole film, it can be a negative. So I don't really know what's going on here. But the film premiered on the 30th of August last year in the UK at Fright Fest, and it has been nominated for over 10 different awards during its film festival rounds and won 6 of those awards. So I don't know, I'm kind of hopeful. There's a poster that's going around that has a bunch of 4-star ratings on it, and I find it really interesting that they're 4 stars. Not that it has to be 5 stars, but that they're all... Oh no, we got 1 5-star at the top. I'll totally take that back. But very interesting. I don't know, the marketing on that. I don't know, I'm very interested and curious, and I have not seen the trailer, so I'm gonna go in completely blind and tell you whether this is worth your time. I know it is playing in some cinemas across the world, so I'll let you know whether it's worth seeing it in the cinema or whether, if you're not too sure about spending money, and there's obviously other options out at the moment, if you should kind of go for something else, or if this is the perfect thing to watch this weekend. I'm really excited because I'm seeing this in advanced screening, but it's just a general screening, so anyone can go. I don't know why they're playing it randomly on a Tuesday, but I am here for it. There's only one way to find out whether this film is worth your time though. Let's go check out The Retaliators. Friends, we cannot win them all. We cannot win them all. This one, I kind of want to pretend it didn't happen. I just got out of watching The Retaliators. I did not like this film. It was so bad. And luckily, I kind of edited like what the blurb said in the IMDb tagline, because I had a feeling it gave away too much, and it kind of did. But I mean, in the end, I didn't really care if this film was spoiled for me. So let's talk a little bit about what the film is actually about. I have a lot of grievances with this film, but I also think it's important to go in expecting what it's about, because I had no idea and I was really thrown off. So the film is about a pastor who is with his 2 daughters, and he is very passive kind of dude. And then a tragic event turns his life upside down, and he is confronted with a situation of choice that could change his path. It is quite a journey film, so it is very complicated to explain because it is convoluted and it is the messiest thing like I've ever seen, to be frank. But before all of that, I need to explain that this film is made, I think it kind of shows its intentions. The film soundtrack is a big part of the movie, and it has a lot of like metal rock like bands in it that are featured in the film. So Papa Roach is in the film, Tommy Lee is in the movie. Those are the ones I kind of knew or recognized or was told. Thank God I went with my friend Scott, who actually understood what was going on with the like the metal aspect of it. But the film basically has 55 people. There's 55 people casted in this film on IMDb for cameos. So it basically is a cameo film. So it kind of gives off, in a weird way, a similar vibe to K-12, not in aesthetics, obviously, but the fact that it is using music for its transition shots, and a lot of it is just interesting ideas. There is like an idea under the surface that is pretty interesting, a situational idea that is kind of half explored, but this film is just bridging shots of music and cameos of all of these metal bands being made to be part of the story even if they don't fit. And so a huge part of this movie is the music. So the soundtrack is like a big seller. Before the movie even played, they had a promo for the track listing, and like a QR code came up in the cinema. So like a huge part, and they have merch as well for this movie. So before it even played, it was obvious it is about the music. So it's just so funny because it's about a freaking pastor. Anyway, there's a whole like weird element of like good versus evil with these really stereotypical scenes with these like metalheads as the cameo, and then the pastor who's like, you know, will turn the other cheek kind of situation. So once you understand that, it kind of builds up your expectation that the fact the film is morphed around trying to include as many people as possible to kind of like name drop, or for like, I guess, fans of metal to have those fun parts. And I could tell who was a cameo, which is like every second person basically throughout the whole film, because there were so many random shots that didn't have to be in there, or random scenes that didn't have to be in there, where they'd focus on someone's face and have them in focus, and it was just very obvious that there was no reason. Tommy Lee shows up in this scene that has nothing to do with anything, and it's like a bridging scene, and it's very strange the way they buried a story, like half-baked, not even half-baked, like they literally didn't turn the oven on. And they buried it underneath all of this convoluted mess to try and include as many people as possible in the film. That's my opinion, but that's what it looks like. But besides all of that, there is a lot of, this film is a logistical nightmare. Editing wise, this film was so hard to watch. Cinematography wise, we've already really touched on sound, but cinematography wise, they had one cinematographer for this, but it doesn't make any sense to me because some of the shots are in focus and some of them aren't. There's some shots in here that like they're pulling focus at the wrong thing, or things are really soft when they're not meant to be. And then there's weird drone footage that is like another bridging shot, and the drone footage is in like 1080p, it looks like. Like it doesn't match each other. And some of it does look quite good, don't get me wrong, but the whole film has this early like 2010s feel. And I don't know if the film took a long time to make, but it just does not feel like a 2022 film at all. It feels like, if someone told me that this film was made in 2009, I would 100% believe them, because the way it looks is very reminiscent of that time and horror within that time. And I don't know, there was just something very off about a lot of the shots, but it didn't do it justice that the editing was just completely botched. I'm going in hard, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I want to like everything I see, trust me. But the editing was very confusing with the time jumps. So basically, you know, there's a lot of action in this film because it's about this guy like finally like sticking up for himself and taking back the power. And so there's a lot of moments where he's like sees something about to happen and he like is meant to like run and do something. And as that's happening, he just like transports to the next like shot, and there's no time for him, like logistically he would not be able to get from A to B. That's the way I can kind of explain it, but it's just a very strangely edited film. Again, with the cameos, you know, a bikie gang show up at one point, and because it is the cameo kind of situation, they can't just let one guy take off his helmet and that be like the power shot of like this bikie gang coming into this location. They need to show every single person getting off their bike one by one, and it's just a lot of repetitive and strange editing for the timeliness of how that would actually take place. But there is a moment where this film actually lost me, and it's when they did a flashback within a flashback. So this guy is telling a story, and within that story he tells another story. Literally, he's telling this guy's story. He says, this thing happened to me 10 years ago. And they go back 10 years. And then within that story, someone says, what are you talking about? And then he tells another person another story. So we go back 16 years. This structure is just like... They said, what do we want to include and how can we possibly get there in the most absurd way? Who cares about how the audience feels about any of it? Like, what more can I say about that? It was just very strange. And then we get to the acting. The acting in this film, very deadpan when it's not meant to be. It's meant to be quite an emotional film. It's not delivered that way. It's just very strange, and reaction times are off. And then there's this weird thing, and I wasn't sure if was gonna include this, but I've kind of like gone all out, so this has like become a rant at this point. But there is a very strange... This sounds really bad to say. There was a very strange connection between the father and the oldest daughter. When I first saw them, they looked like they weren't very far apart in age. And the way that they communicated with each other did not feel like father and daughter. I'm just going to leave it at that. It felt very off and strange. And yeah. The whole thing just did not feel real or realistic on any point, any factor. I always go into horror films with, I'm happy to suspend all my belief, but I also want to believe I'm watching a film. You know what I mean? Like, you still have to present me with a film. So there was a story or an idea like really buried into this whole situation they built to, but then by the time they'd finally built there, after having a flashback and they do this whole like side story because of this awful tragedy that the father goes through, they do this whole side story to do with a cop and this crime, and it's like feels like a crime thriller at one point, and by the time they actually get to this story or this thing that they're building to, they have like 10 minutes to in and out that story, and it falls by the wayside, and then they try and bring back and wrap it around with something else that they dropped in earlier to, you know, kind of wrap it all together. And yeah, I would say that the gore is funny. It's a funny film. I laughed the whole time through, but it's not a comedy. The gore, I mean, it's alright, but story-wise, it's an absolute mess. But if you are a fan, a metalhead, if you're a fan of that kind of stuff, I think you'd probably get something out of it, because, I mean, I don't know these people, but if you like, you know, are a big metal fan and you look at the cast list and there's a lot of people in there that you love, it's probably worth watching, but I would not recommend seeing this in the cinema. I know it's doing a limited release at some cinemas, but I recommend just waiting for it to come out to stream if you're going to watch it, if that. But to a normal like horror goer that is not into like the metal scene and not familiar with these kinds of people, or I mean, you don't have to be a metalhead and like those people, but if you like those kinds of bands, maybe think about it. But it's not the greatest story. But if you're not interested in that at all, I would not recommend this. I would not recommend this. It was a very strange ride, and it was a lot. It's doing what we like to call in my household, it did the most and the least at the same time. I'm going to give this one a personal score of 3 out of 10. Scare score, I'm going to give it maybe like a 5 for gore, but it's not really scary because it just seems all so fake. And for originality, I'm going to give it a 2. Yeah, there's like a little interesting, as I keep saying, interesting setup buried down deep beneath something, but everything else that they show has been seen before, and there are plenty of, I don't want to like spoil that setup, but there are plenty of other examples of that setup in horror films. Anyway, I hope you're having a fantastic day. Yeah, that was a lot. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you appreciate my honesty. I'm always honest on this channel. Some people think I like to hype things up, but don't worry, I get disappointed too. And hopefully, if you did like this film, you enjoyed it a lot more than me. Let me know down below what your opinion is, because everyone likes different stuff. Apparently, this is a 4 and 5-star movie as per the poster. I don't know. I would like what you're on. I would love that. Anyway, hope you're having a fantastic day. I'd love if you subscribe. We're going to talk about a disturbing movie in a couple of days. But until then, stay safe and stay spooky. Bye, friends.